She mopped the same dojo floors she once dreamed of training on. Every night, after the students left, the sound of her broom echoed where others once cheered. To them, she was invisible, just the janitor cleaning up after greatness. But tonight, someone was watching. The new instructor, a decorated black belt with a spotless reputation and a heart full of pride, didn't like what she saw. One careless comment. One cruel smirk. That's all it took to remind everyone who she thought belonged on the mat, and who didn't. But what she didn't know was that the woman she mocked carried a story that would shake her to her core. A past she couldn't imagine. A truth that would turn humiliation into reckoning. Because sometimes, the person you look down on is the one you should have been learning from all along. What happened inside that dojo would leave everyone silent, and her, forever changed. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching this from? By day, the dojo gleamed with pride. White walls lined with medals, mirrors reflecting strength, and students bowing in perfect unison. It was a place built on discipline and respect, or at least that's what the posters claimed. Every morning, Angela, the new instructor, arrived early. A rising name in martial arts, confident, sharp, and proud of her spotless reputation. Her students adored her. Her colleagues envied her precision. To her, success was measured in titles, belts, and the way people looked at her when she entered the room. But when the last class ended and the lights dimmed, another woman stepped in. Renee, the janitor, quiet, focused, and unnoticed. She moved through the empty dojo like she'd been there her whole life. Her hands scrubbed the same mats where others practiced their kicks. Most people never even learnt her name. But she didn't mind. She'd learnt long ago that not every battle was fought with fists. Still, there was something about the dojo that pulled her back night after night, a deep familiarity she never spoke of. Sometimes, when no one was around, she'd pause, watching her reflection in the mirror, her posture straightening as if muscle memory was whispering old secrets. And one evening, Angela noticed. The way Renee's stance shifted, how her movements weren't random at all. Something in her eyes, the calm of someone who'd once known what real discipline meant. But instead of curiosity, Angela felt something else, something sharper. That night, a silent rivalry was born. One built not on skill, but on pride. Neither woman knew that soon, those polished dojo floors would witness a lesson far deeper than any martial art could teach. The next morning, the dojo buzzed with excitement. Angela was hosting a new self-defense workshop, open to the public, meant to empower women. Flyers covered the walls, her photo front and center, her name bold beneath the title Master Instructor. It was supposed to be her moment. Renee, as usual, arrived later to clean up. She stayed out of the way, mopping around scattered pads and stray water bottles. But as she worked, she caught glimpses of Angela demonstrating moves, flawless technique, perfect form, and sharp confidence that demanded attention. Yet behind the admiration in the students' eyes, there was something colder. A subtle divide. When Renee entered the room, the tone shifted. Conversations hushed. Smiles faded. At first, she brushed it off. She'd faced that silence before, at schools, in stores, and in workplaces where people decided who she was before she ever spoke. But when Angela's voice cut through the room, it felt like a punch she didn't see coming. Careful not to slip, everyone. The floors can get messy if someone doesn't do her job right. Laughter followed. The kind that hides cruelty under politeness. Renee froze mid-step, her fingers tightening on the mop handle. Her chest burnt, but she said nothing. She'd learnt that silence could be louder than words. Later that evening, after everyone had left, Angela stayed behind to lock up. She noticed Renee practicing slow movements near the mirror, graceful, deliberate, and balanced. It wasn't cleaning. It was training. The kind only someone deeply trained could do. Angela crossed her arms. "That's not how we use this space," she said, her tone dripping with superiority. "This isn't a hobby center." Renee didn't look away. "Just keeping the floor even," she replied softly. But her stance, her calm, something about it unnerved Angela. It felt like defiance. The next few days, the tension grew. Angela made small comments, subtle insults that weren't loud enough for others to call out but sharp enough for Renee to feel. A forgotten thank you here. A mocking glance there. Every moment built another layer of distance. Then came the breaking point. One afternoon, a visiting student spilt water across the mat during class. Angela turned instantly, her eyes locking on Renee, who had just entered. "Guess you missed a spot," she snapped, though Renee hadn't even touched that area. The room went silent. Dozens of eyes turned toward the janitor. Renee stood still, shoulders squared, but inside, something cracked. Years of being unseen, unheard, diminished, all boiling beneath her calm surface. Without a word, she set the mop aside, bowed slightly, and began to leave. But as she reached the door, one of the students, curious and kind, called out, "Wait, how did you move like that yesterday? I saw you in the mirror." The question hung in the air. Angela's face stiffened. Renee paused, then turned back slowly. "Old habits," she said, her voice steady. "Ones I never thought I'd use again." No one knew what she meant. Not yet. But the look in her eyes made everyone else uneasy, including Angela. It was the look of someone who'd been underestimated too many times. And as Renee walked out that night, Angela couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just awakened something she didn't understand, and couldn't control. If you're feeling this story so far, hit that subscribe button. More real, powerful stories like this are coming next. The following week, the dojo prepared for a public demonstration, an event meant to draw new students, sponsors, and media attention. Angela stood proudly at the front, her white gi spotless, her black belt gleaming under the lights. Her words carried confidence, her smile rehearsed. Renee was there too, sweeping quietly along the back wall, blending into the edges of the room. The crowd filled in, cameras ready, applause echoing as Angela's students took the mat. Everything was perfect, until Angela decided to make a point. She called out, "Sometimes, strength means knowing your place. Even when others forget theirs." Her eyes flicked toward Renee. A few people chuckled, unsure if it was a joke. But Angela wasn't joking. Then, to everyone's surprise, she waved toward Renee. "Why don't you come show us how you'd defend yourself, since you seem so confident moving around my mats?" The room fell silent. Renee froze. It wasn't an invitation, it was a test, a public humiliation wrapped in politeness. She could have walked away. She almost did. But something inside her said no. Not this time. She stepped forward. Slowly. Calmly. Her uniform wasn't clean. Her hands were calloused. Yet her movements had a quiet grace that turned heads. Angela smirked, stepping into position. "Don't worry, I'll go easy on you," she said. The match began. Angela struck first, sharp, precise, fast. But before anyone could blink, Renee moved. A smooth sidestep. A shift of balance. A counter so natural it looked effortless. The crowd gasped as Angela stumbled backward, shock flashing across her face. The room changed. Laughter faded. Phones lifted. Renee wasn't just holding her own, she was teaching. Every move, every step was controlled, respectful, but undeniably superior. Years of forgotten training resurfaced in perfect rhythm. She wasn't just defending herself, she was reclaiming her worth. Angela, red-faced, lunged again, harder this time. But Renee didn't flinch. With one fluid motion, she redirected the attack, guiding Angela safely but firmly to the mat. The thud echoed through the room. For a moment, silence. Then whispers. Someone finally spoke, "She's not just a janitor." Angela lay still, stunned. Her pride shattered. Around her, the truth unfolded. Renee had once been a national martial arts champion, until an injury and discrimination pushed her out of the sport she loved. The very dojo she now cleaned had once refused her a teaching position because of the color of her skin. And now, without anger or arrogance, she had reminded everyone who she truly was. Renee bowed, not to humiliate, but to honor the art. "Respect," she said quietly, before turning to leave. Angela could only watch as the crowd parted for the woman she'd mocked, each face reflecting what words never could. Because in that moment, every eye in the dojo finally saw her. And Angela, for the first time, saw herself. The next day, the dojo felt different. The same mats. The same walls. But the air carried a silence that spoke louder than any applause. Word of what happened had spread quickly, clips of the moment shared online, whispers traveling far beyond those four walls. Renee didn't come in that morning. Her mop leaned quietly in the corner, the bucket still half full. For the first time, the students noticed how spotless the dojo always was, how much work had gone unseen. Respect, once just a word printed on a banner, suddenly felt heavy with meaning. Angela arrived early, her steps slower, her confidence dimmed. Every corner of the room reminded her of that night, not the embarrassment, but the realization that pride had blinded her to the very thing martial arts stood for, humility. She replayed Renee's movements in her mind, the precision, the calm, the grace, and it haunted her, not because she lost, but because she finally saw how much she'd never cared to see. Later that week, Renee returned. No crowd. No cameras. Just the quiet hum of a place that had changed. Angela walked up to her, words catching in her throat. For once, there was no arrogance, only sincerity. She didn't make excuses. She simply said, "I was wrong." Renee nodded, her expression soft but unreadable. "We all learn," she said quietly. "Some lessons just take longer." From that day on, Angela started teaching differently. Her tone changed. Her eyes, once so quick to judge, now searched for potential where she used to see limitation. And every time a new student walked through the door, no matter their background, she made sure they felt seen. Renee, too, found peace in her quiet work, though she never sought attention. She didn't need validation, she'd already proven her worth. Still, her story became a quiet legend among the students, a reminder that greatness doesn't always wear a belt, and respect isn't earned through rank but through how we treat those we think are beneath us. In the end, it wasn't about who won that night. It was about what changed afterward. It's about one woman realizing that racism doesn't always shout, it often whispers in laughter, hides behind compliments, and lives in the spaces where respect should be. Renee didn't expose Angela to humiliate her, she exposed the truth that humility can break walls that strength never could. Because every time someone is dismissed for the color of their skin or the role they play, the world loses a bit of its honor. And sometimes, it takes a quiet act of courage to remind us what humanity really means. So the question is, how many more stories like Renee's will it take before we stop underestimating the people who carry the heaviest loads, and start seeing them for who they truly are?